Of news, House State Affairs passed two high-profile election bills this week. One which would prohibit the use of absentee ballot drop boxes, and the other which would disallow signed affidavits for same-day voter registration. The second bill would also ban the use of student ID cards as a valid form of ID for voter registration, and would allow the Idaho Transportation Department to issue free IDs for those who don't have driver's licenses. If passed into law, both bills would go into effect before this year's May primary.
Voter suppression.
This legislation would prohibit the use of drop-off boxes or similar drop-off locations to collect absentee ballots. You know, when we identify, we encourage voter turnout. We want people to vote as much as possible.
Baloney.
But we also need secure and fair elections. Yeah. And so there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis when you look at the use of drop-off locations. And that's where this legislation identifies that I think that there's a higher benefit to not having these.
Our ballot drop boxes are widely used. They are very secure. And I think that if we're trying to solve a security issue, we should be looking at the security issue, not just banning drop boxes generally the way that this legislation does. And I think that that would be a wonderful thing to see and debate.
We will keep in same-day registration. And under same-day registration, this is where we go through the requirements under 34408 for identification purposes. You need to show identification, which includes an Idaho driver's license, an Idaho identification card, a current U.S. passport, current active U.S. military identification, or a current tribal identification. Provisional ballots I have removed, although I like them much better than an affidavit. But you know what? We're going to remove the affidavit as well. There is no point to have and keep carrying on with an election on election day. You provide the residency and the identification and citizenship for a first-time voter, and if not, you just don't vote.
Voter suppression.
So that's in there to remove affidavits.
Those bills now go before the full House. Of note, Representative Dorothy Moon is sponsoring the voter ID bill. On Friday, Senator Mary Souza introduced similar legislation in Senate State Affairs. Both are running to be the Republican candidate for Secretary of State. On Thursday, the Senate passed legislation modeled after Texas abortion laws. The bill would allow family members of a fetus to sue abortion providers for damages if they provide an unlawful abortion. Under the bill, an unlawful abortion would mean after a fetal heartbeat can be detected by a physician, which is typically around 6 weeks of pregnancy.
The father, married or not, as a partner, even if it's a one-night stand, grandparents, siblings, aunts and uncles, interestingly, not parents, are allowed to criminalize the doctor even if it's an attempt. There's no definition of attempt. They had a discussion about it. There was even a consideration, but the action didn't happen. And yet each family member can criminalize the doctor up to 4 years after.
Victims of most other horrible evils of our day are not entirely defenseless, as are the unborn. Victims of human trafficking, or of abuse, or of kidnapping, may have the opportunity for escape or for recovery, not the unborn.
I am adopted. And if it was not for my mother's decision not to have an abortion, I would not be here. And we are here today as a body to be that voice, to be the voice of those that cannot speak.
The bill passed in a 28-6 vote and now heads to the House of Representatives. On Friday, Senator Jim Rice introduced a bill that would raise the sales tax but would significantly lower property taxes for many Idahoans. The bill would remove property taxes for some primary residences, except for local bonds and levies, and instead would increase the sales tax to 7.85%.
What the bill would do is remove all of the property tax off a person's primary residence except bonds and school levies. So your city, county, highway district, etc., will be no longer taxing people's primary residence. The other thing it does is it raises the grocery credit to $175 per person.
Wow.
To do that, we raised the sales tax by 1.85%.
Whoa.
And we use general funds in the amount of $12.16 million. So it's a net tax cut of $12.16 million, but
It's a tax
its
shift.
real value is in what it does for homeowners. Sales tax increase is used for two things. 1.65% is dedicated to the local taxing districts to replace what's taken out of their budgets by removing that property tax. Beauty of this is you're taking a narrow tax and you're replacing it with the broadest possible tax. So
The
people that
IRS
don't
says
live
the
in the
sales
state of
tax
Idaho
and
that
grocery
come
tax is
visit
a
in our
regressive
state,
tax.
Vacation here, drive through will help pay for
It affects
the
low-income
services that
people
they
more
get
than
the
it does
benefit
rich
of in our
people.
state.
The House Revenue and Taxation Committee introduced the bill for a possible public hearing at a later date. This